The evening sky was heavy with clouds, a deep shade of gray spreading across the city. The streets were wet, shining under the dim yellow lights of street lamps, as if the world had been brushed with silver paint. Cars rushed past with splashes of water spraying from their tires, horns echoing now and then, while people hurried with their umbrellas, eager to get home before the rain grew stronger. On the corner of the street, however, life seemed to have stopped. A boy, no older than 10, sat huddled against the cold stone wall of a closed shop. His clothes were damp and clung to his skinny frame. His bare feet rested on the wet pavement, trembling every time the chilly wind swept through the street. In his small arms he held a bundle wrapped in faded cloth, pressed tightly against his chest as though it was the only thing keeping him safe. The boy's eyes wandered over the people rushing past him. None of them seemed to notice him, or perhaps they simply chose not to. To them, he was invisible, just another poor child on the street. He pulled his knees up closer and whispered softly, almost as if trying to convince himself. Mama said it's going to be okay, Mama said. But Mama wasn't there anymore. It had been weeks since he had lost her. She had been sick for a long time, coughing day and night in their small rented room. He remembered how she smiled at him, even in pain, and how she always tucked him in with her old blue shawl. That same shawl was inside the bundle he carried now, his only treasure. When she passed away, the neighbors shook their heads, the landlord closed the door on him, and he was left wandering, searching for warmth, food, and someone to care. As the rain picked up again, large drops splashed onto his thin shoulders. He lowered his head, fighting the tears that wanted to fall. Hunger gnawed at his stomach. It had been more than a day since he'd eaten anything more than a stale piece of bread someone had thrown away. Then, footsteps slowed near him. The boy looked up. A man, perhaps in his late 30s, had stopped under a wide black umbrella. He wore a gray coat, his shoes polished even though the rain splashed against them. His briefcase suggested he had just left work. Unlike the others who passed by without looking, this man's gaze fixed directly on the boy. The man crouched down, bringing himself to the child's level. Hey, he said gently, his voice cutting through the sound of the rain. Why are you out here all alone, kiddo? Where's your family? The boy's lips trembled. He wanted to stay quiet, because talking always led to pity or rejection. But something in the stranger's eyes, kindness, softness, made him whisper, I don't have anyone. Mama's gone. Papa's gone. I have no home. The man felt a tug in his chest. He reached out, carefully placing his coat over the boy's shoulders. The fabric was warm, smelling faintly of cologne. The boy's eyes widened in surprise. Why are you giving me this? He asked, clutching the coat as though afraid it would be taken back. Because you're shivering, the man said simply. And no child should be left like this. What's your name? Daniel, the boy murmured. Daniel, the man repeated softly. I'm Michael. Nice to meet you. He smiled, trying to put him at ease. Come on, let's get you out of the rain. You need something warm to eat. Daniel hesitated, glancing at the bundle in his arms. Can I bring this with me? Of course, Michael nodded. Whatever you're holding must be important. They walked together to a small diner just down the street. The warmth of the place hit Daniel as soon as they stepped inside. The smell of frying food, coffee, and fresh bread filled the air. People turned to look briefly, then went back to their meals. Michael guided Daniel to a booth near the window. The waitress approached, her eyes softening when she noticed Daniel's thin frame and wet clothes. What can I get for you? She asked. Something warm, Michael said. Soup, maybe. And hot chocolate. And bring him a plate of fries too. Daniel stared at the table as though it was a dream. He could already imagine the taste of hot chocolate, something he hadn't had in months. When the food arrived, he devoured it quickly, though politely, whispering, thank you, after every bite. Michael watched silently, fighting the lump in his throat. He thought of his own childhood, how he grew up with loving parents who never let him go to bed hungry. He thought of how unfair life could be, and how easy it was for people to ignore the suffering around them. When Daniel finally slowed down, sipping the last of his chocolate, Michael asked gently, do you have anywhere to stay tonight? Daniel shook his head. I usually find a corner, under the bridge, or near the park bench. But it's cold when it rains. Michael leaned back, considering his next words carefully. Daniel, how would you feel if you came with me tonight? I have a guest room at my place. You could sleep in a real bed, with blankets. Tomorrow, we'll figure out something more permanent. Does that sound okay? Daniel froze, staring at him in disbelief. No one had ever offered him such kindness. His small voice broke with emotion. You'd let me stay with you. Michael reached across the table, resting his hand gently over Daniel's. Yes. Because you deserve safety, food, and love. Every child does. Tears welled in Daniel's eyes as he whispered, "Thank you, Michael. You're like an angel." That night, Daniel slept in a warm bed for the first time in months. He wrapped himself in soft blankets, clutching his bundle, the shawl of his mother, close to his chest. Before drifting off, he whispered to the memory of his mother, "Mama, maybe God sent me someone to take care of me." Over the following weeks, Michael made arrangements. He contacted a friend who worked at a local school and explained Daniel's situation. With a little paperwork and support, Daniel was enrolled. New clothes were bought, a backpack filled with books, pencils, and crayons. The first day Daniel walked into the classroom, he felt nervous, but Michael was there at the door, giving him a reassuring smile and thumbs up. School was not easy at first. Daniel had missed years of learning. Some kids teased him for his old shoes or the way he stumbled over reading. But there were also kind classmates who helped him, and caring teachers who gave him extra attention. And every evening, when he came home, Michael sat with him, helping with homework, cheering every little improvement. "See this?" Michael would say, pointing at Daniel's neatly written words. "That's progress. You're smart, Daniel. You can do anything." Hearing those words made Daniel believe in himself little by little. As time passed, neighbors noticed the change. They remembered the boy who once sat shivering on the street, and now saw him smiling, carrying books, talking with confidence. Many were touched by Michael's act of kindness, and some even offered help, donations of clothes, tutoring, or invitations to community events. Kindness, it seemed, was contagious. Years rolled on. Daniel grew taller, stronger, wiser. He excelled in school, his grades climbing steadily. By the time he reached high school, he was winning awards, writing essays about hope and humanity, and volunteering to help younger students who struggled. One evening, during a school event, Daniel was asked to give a short speech. Standing nervously at the podium, he scanned the audience until his eyes landed on Michael, sitting proudly in the front row. Daniel took a deep breath. "I want to share something personal," he began. "A few years ago, I was a boy with no home, no family, and no hope. I sat alone in the rain, believing the world didn't care. But one man stopped. He gave me food, warmth, and most importantly, love. That act of kindness changed my entire life. Without him, I wouldn't be standing here today. So I want to remind everyone, your small act of kindness may be the miracle someone else is praying for." The room erupted in applause. Michael wiped a tear from his eye, his heart swelling with pride. Daniel's journey didn't stop there. He went on to college, supported by scholarships and Michael's encouragement. He chose to study social work, determined to dedicate his life to helping children who were lost and forgotten, just as he once was. Eventually, he opened a foundation, a safe shelter for homeless children. At the entrance of the building, there was a plaque with the words, "Inspired by one act of kindness that changed a life." Children filled the halls with laughter, learning, and dreams. Daniel often walked among them, offering warm meals, hugs, and encouragement, just as Michael had once given him. And whenever someone asked why he worked so hard, Daniel smiled and said, "Because kindness saved me. Now it's my turn to pass it on." Michael, now older with graying hair, would visit often. Watching Daniel lead, he felt the same pride as any father would. He knew that one rainy night, when he had chosen to stop and care, had created ripples that changed countless lives. And so, the story of a shivering boy and a kind stranger became a living reminder to everyone. One act of kindness can rewrite an entire destiny.